Peace, family. Peace and elevation, family. It's your brother Mike X. Welcome to my YouTube channel, BruthaMikeXSpeaks. I hope that you will subscribe to this channel and share this message and think about, what I say to you tonight. You know what I mean? Don't let anyone convince you or shame you by telling you that if you don't vote, you don't count. You know what I mean? When you begin to process through that statement, it makes no sense whatsoever. You know what I mean? In regard to your empowerment, or our people fought and died to give you the right to vote. So continue to exercise that oftentimes fruitless practice, just because, your people fought and died to give you that right. Our people didn't fight and die to give us the right to practice something that is questionable how effective it is. In today's times, and how we are empowered through that practice or not empowered through that practice. Like, number one, and I've talked about this before, voting is usually something that is done every 2 years or every 4 years or even every 6 years, depending upon what elections you are participating in. Federal, state, local, government, and each one of those elections and the people who are elected that are supposed to represent you, the effectiveness of how they can represent you differs, depending upon whether it's federal, state, or local. A lot of times it's not discussed as much, but your local politicians are the ones who have the greatest potential to impact your lives. Your city council person, your state senator, your state assembly person, or your borough president, or the mayor of the city that you may live in, a lot of times have way more impact over your lives, than who is the president, or who's going to be the governor, of the state that you live in. And some of these states are vast, like New York or California or Texas. I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote, but you also should not think that if you don't vote, that you don't count. You know what I mean? There are decisions that each one of us make in our individual lives, and then in the life of the neighborhood, the communities that we live in, that we make every day, that are much more consequential to your quality of life as an individual, and also your ability to grow that life and to transform that life by your focus on personal empowerment and mastery that will allow you to overflow your love, your self-respect, your confidence, your courage, the results that come from discipline, committing yourself to taking your health seriously, to growing your consciousness and awareness through lifelong study and learning. You know what I mean? The balancing of your emotional equilibrium, to not allow yourself to be someone that is afraid to speak up and speak out on opinions that matter to you. You know? So if you practice this thing of, if I don't vote, I don't count, you're giving power away to others to decide for you. If you will be able to live a meaningful life or not. You know what I mean? And you were given free will. You know? And as a matter of fact, if you were awakened today, that alone by itself tells you that you count. You know? Because if you didn't count, you would have died. You wouldn't have woke up today. You know what I mean? Your life would be over. Your chances to empower yourself and to have a real positive impact and influence in this world of ours would just be over. So no, now you don't count. You know? But even in that, you know, that's not even totally true, especially if you've lived an awakened life where you've used your time and invested your time in becoming someone who is able to love, who has sought knowledge, wisdom, and has gained an understanding, and has taken the opportunity to write books, to make speeches, to build relationships, positive relationships, you know, where you overflow that love, you overflow that care and concern into the lives of others, impacting them and energizing them to seek to do the same thing. This is how movements are started. Do you know what I mean? So again, don't let anyone tell you or shame you into believing that if you don't vote, you don't count. You know? Particularly as a black person in a country that has been formed and has practiced a so-called benign neglect of us and our needs. What do they give you for your vote? You know what I mean? Tangibly. More than just a button or a sticker. You know? Or, you know, the saying that, you know, our people fought and died 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so in honor of them, we'll continue to do something that is not producing any real tangible results for us in the here and now. Do you know what I mean? I say again, focus on your day-to-day life, you know. Focus on using your time. Committed to taking certain steps, disciplined steps that will help you to enjoy a healthy physical well-being. You know what I mean? An exercise regimen of some sort. A practice of eating to live instead of living to eat, as they say. A practice of using more of your mind, your brain capacity, if you will. There's an old saying that the average person only uses 5% of their total brain capacity. You know what I mean? A lot of us are too lazy to think for ourselves in today's times. And this is why a lot of times we're susceptible to people telling us what we should do with our lives, while they would never let you tell them what to do with their lives. We need to have a more spiritual outlook and practice in our lives, where we avail ourselves of study, introspection, and application of higher truths. You know, standing on the shoulders of our ancestors who were much more wise and committed in the way that they lived their lives, giving us rich opportunities to learn from their accomplishments and to learn from their mistakes. You know, to live a solution-oriented or based life. You know, energy flows where your attention goes. Don't focus on what you can't control. Focus on what you can control or positively influence. You know? Don't live a trauma-based life, thinking that your life is so small and so short that it's best that I just go along to get along. You know, keep my opinions to myself. Put 5, 6, 12 locks on my door and hope that the poverty, the disempowerment, the ignorance, the lack of knowledge, which has made us powerless over our own lives and over the affairs of our community. If knowledge is power, or at least if knowledge is potential power, then ignorance is the lack of power. You know what I mean? Ignorance being the lack of knowledge is the lack of power. If knowledge is power or potential power, so again, family, I'm not going to go too long with this, but don't allow anyone to bully you or shame you into the choice between the lesser of two evils. You know? Yo, if this dude gets reelected, he's going to become a dictator and this and that and what have you. Well, if people allow one person to stop them from thinking for themselves and acting for themselves, to breathe a more enlightened discourse into the public lexicon, so to speak, where we start to focus on what we have in common, instead of fighting over our many differences. If people will allow one person to take advantage of them and turn them into savages and monsters and fear-driven bigots and you know what I mean? And then that's on them, man. That still doesn't take away your power to live a more enlightened, self-empowered life, to where you can be a positive example, to have impact and influence in your family, amongst your neighbors, in your community or your neighborhood, to be a light bearer, to be a light worker. You know what I mean? Don't give away your power to exercise control and mastery over your own thoughts, over your own discourse and well-being, to give what you want to receive, to make this world a better place, man, for everyone, particularly the babies coming up behind us. You have more power, potential power, that can be manifested throughout the journey of your life than you may know at this time. I challenge you to exercise better and control over your thoughts, to live a life of faith. You know what I mean? To live a life of self-mastery that will give other people permission to live more enlightened and self-empowered lives following your example. You know what I mean? So having said that, family, I say keep studying, keep growing your consciousness and your awareness. You know what I mean? Don't let anyone limit your ability to grow and manifest a more divine and empowered existence. You know what I mean? Don't let anyone get you to focus more on, a gender-based bigotry and prejudice, and an age-based, bigotry and prejudice, a religious-based bigotry and prejudice. You know what I mean? A geographic-based bigotry and prejudice. Because most of the time the people who are pushing you in that direction are focused on continuing the practice of divide and conquer. You know what I mean? By getting you to focus more on differences than to focus on common interests that cut across those lines and allow us the possibility of collaborating with one another instead of needlessly fighting and killing and hurting one another. So having said that, man, I say peace and elevation. This is your brother Mike X. And I'll talk to you again soon. Again, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share this message. And continue to build, family. The God in me recognizes the God in you. You know what I mean? Let's continue to build. Peace.